Welcome everyone, this is Pine Needles and you're listening to LOTRO Players News, where we take a look at lasers and LOTRO and here at LOTRO Players. And this week we have with us Sanswinda,
Hello.
Guerendis,
Hello, everyone.
and Krister.
Hello.
Hello everyone. And let's head into the news this week, which is Dinosaur Team was on holiday. Pretty much. Yes, not much happened in there. Everything happened in the background. In fact, this is the first time in a long time that we did not have any patches, just a regular reboot or the usual weekly reboot on there. No patches or little updates or anything like that. So I'm sure we'll be seeing some more updates in the near future. Let's then go into our store sales. Guarandis, what's on sale this week?
Well, kind of ambivalent about this one. Loot box keys, universal solvents, universal morale and power potions, and deed boosts through the 9th of June. And you can get a free battle potion of restoration if you don't get enough of them in Hobbit gifts with the coupon code Batpot. No.
Yeah, I was going to say, that sounds like something on his utility. Deploy the Batpot.
Deploy the Batpot. Oh boy. Well, I'm just wondering because seeing that the Batman show that used that theme song was in the 60s.
We deployed the Batpot, so we have to pause filming while everybody recovers.
Catering is decimated.
Let's then head into our site news where we have a article by My Squirrel who tells us a little bit of a story without tracery. That's right. He decided to see what would happen if he tried to level up his ally. Now, this was already on the challenge dwarf that got all the way up to Moria with only using stuff he got. He wasn't allowed to, I think he was only allowed to use questing gear or anything like that. So he was limited on what he was allowed to do with his character in there, and he decided that he wasn't going to do too much with his LI and all that stuff. So when the new LI system came out, he generated the new LI and said that he was going to do this without any traceries. So he wanted to see how far can he get without having any traceries on his LI. Yep.
And I'm assuming he died right outside of the Prancing Pony and couldn't continue.
No, in fact, let's see. He did get all the way through Rohan. And starting, so he wrote this thing about the time where he was going to go into Rohan. Looks like he's sort of like this. He said he skipped some tests in the Helm's Deep where he just did the story mode through Helm's Deep. He didn't do all those epic battles or anything like that in there. So he went into Gondor on there. He didn't talk too much about what it's. I tried to see what he was doing. It looks like he's not quite done with it. He's just getting started on Gondor is the impression I'm given in there. So the title of that section, Skipping Tests and Gondor into Mordor, but it didn't look like he really got into Gondor yet. So it looks like that he's just getting into Gondor. Maybe he's going to give us a later article on how Gondor and Mordor go out in the future. But he's got himself at least all the way through Rohan in his tests on there. So it looks like he's gotten a little bit far onto there without having to. Now he does reforge the LI when he hits the every 5 level bit. He just has no traceries on there, so he doesn't have to worry about trying to get script or anything like that.
And you mean he has nothing on that sword or that item, that legendary item, right? You mean he hasn't applied anything? He's just basically reforging it, and I mean, he didn't apply any of the buffs, any of the bonuses that you could apply, right? I'm just trying to think.
Because all those bonuses are with traceries, right?
Yeah, because I'm the curiosity for me is, if you're doing that, is the only true thing that LI is going to be doing is just simply increasing in DPS, increasing its DPS or increasing its defense. Is it just ultimately like a regular weapon plus at that point?
That's pretty much
really
sounds
sharp.
like it. Yeah, because all the bonuses. He said that he's not missing his DPS significantly. The main thing he's missing are all those cooldown.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. It's almost like you're torturing yourself just to torture yourself. Yeah, that's kind of an interesting. It's just interesting to think about that. Is if you didn't do anything, then why not just use things you get off the landscape at that point too? You know what I mean? So.
Oh, you mean a non-legendary weapons?
Yeah, you could probably get other things that have bonuses to them that might actually work better than that. But I guess what's interesting about this too is it feels like the move has, because I think LOTRO's problem was the legendary system when it came out was that was the hysterical part for me, was everything was legendary. It was just like, I thought legendary items were supposed to be kind of like rare and unique. I don't remember about 50,000 Hope Diamonds floating around the Earth, for instance. So it was just funny that everything was legendary. So I like the fact that doing these changes have made your legendary things actually feel kind of legendary. But I've never really thought about removing it. I'm trying to think of the point other than just to make your life more difficult is really fun. But sometimes people do that. Sometimes you have to make your journey difficult to appreciate it.
Now, one compromise one could make if they wanted to do something about trying to make their life simpler so they don't have to worry about script is
mithril coins.
No, not mithril coins either. But allow themselves to use traceries that are given as quest rewards or drops.
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
But when I say that, natural quest that they would normally do, as opposed, because doing a grindy quest that awards traceries, I think, would be, of course, going around the entire point of the challenge, I think. So doing things.
Right, yeah, I see what you mean. If it's granted in the main line story, then you should be able to use it. But if you get it like in a
epic quest.
An epic quest, or you get it doing a raid or something, then that's not. That doesn't conform to the rules, basically.
Right. Now, of course, doing a raid is highly unlikely. Well, actually, Ploy might allow someone like that, but usually, I suspect that not too many raid groups are going to allow someone who doesn't have any traceries or have minimalist traceries to participate.
Details.
What? Details, yes.
Details.
Yeah, we take everybody. Angry loaders, the elderly, everybody.
Yes, Ploy doesn't discriminate too much in the way of raids, but I know that there are some ones who actually think that you should have. We want to finish tier 2 the day after it gets initially released.
Yeah, those are completely, those are kids that are completely constructed differently than us, and
yes.
And if you have a serious group, then you're just going to laugh off somebody that's, oh, I don't have any traceries. Oh, I just Valar'd my class. Yeah, no, we're not grouping with you.
Yes. I remember what my traceries looked like with my brawler when I went right after Valerie. Oops.
See, we took your brawler on a raid. Nobody in their right mind would take a brawler, but Ploy will.
Hey, well, actually, they were a lot more happier to it when they heard that the brawler has group damage buffs.
Absolutely. See, we figured out the brawler's worth during the raid. So
Right. Right. And that's it for our site news for this week. So let's then head into our week in gaming, where Krister, what were you up to?
well, we did our Hidden Horde run last night, and we were kind of spotty on our signups this week, so we kind of figuring we might not have a full group, but it worked out really nicely. The nice thing about T1 is that we can probably 10 or 11 man a T1. We can definitely 11 man a T1, but we could probably 10 man a T1 as well. And so that allows us to to conduct to the raid, at least do it. And because we still have people that need boots at this point, so it's always worthwhile to do the T1. So we did the T1, and we had a decent time. It was a good group, and we went right through. And I do believe that we did get someone. Oh yeah, that's right. Our former Kin leader is starting to play again. That was Czar, you guys met, and he. I think he's starting to get more interested in it. So if he's coming back, then we might actually be having more cohesive T2 raids as well, because I was more of a steward for Ploy than anything else. So that's exciting that the T1s are going well, and we can do them every time. But I warned Czar, since that was his first time, of course, is that you cannot have any confidence whatsoever that you can do a T2 now. T2s are an order of magnitude tougher, so we really have to have it together. And so that's when people will probably start to seriously look. Now, just out of curiosity, finally, if I know, because people have mentioned this in the past, would you ever bring your warden on a raid with us?
Well, didn't I? Actually, I think the first time I did the raid with you, it was with my warden.
Yeah, I think people were curious, because I believe the wardens do have a lot of several beneficial group-wide buffs, if I'm not mistaken. You would correct me on that.
Oh, I guess I know of one. I don't know of any others, but then of course that could just be because I haven't done too many.
Well, there's a lot to learn with all that.
But actually, what I was thinking though is because I've done quite a bit of grouping with that one. I guess I just never thought of really looking at them, because I think that the ones that we have on the warden, I keep on forgetting about when we are battling. So,
well, and that's what's interesting about getting into the rating aspect of it, is the rating aspect is going to force you to look at your character again and those skills that you never used or put to the side because they really weren't in your combat, the way you conduct combat and whatnot. And so now all those skills might be relevant again, And then when you get into the T2s, when you get into the more advanced stuff, where every teeny tiny, even if it gives you 1%, that's still 1% more, and that's every little bit counts at that point. So if the warden has a buff that can just give us a little bit more, then that might be beneficial to take a look at too. And plus, since we're doing them every Friday, there's no reason why we can't try different combinations of classes if people are willing to, try different things out and see what works. But basically, had a good time last night. We got some boots and gear, so it went well. And with in ESO, I started to play a new class, a Templar, and I'm really liking that one. And I fired a lot of Ploy people have been playing Final Fantasy lately, so I fired Final Fantasy up again and took a look at that and realized what's hysterical is the playstyle of ESO is so radically different from Final Fantasy and LOTRO. Final Fantasy and LOTRO are kind of similar in terms of how you conduct your combat. But what I found myself doing in Final Fantasy is I'd run up to the mob to attack it, and then I'd inevitably turn around and have my back to it. Well, that's because in ESO, my cord's constantly moving around like a ding-dong. And so it was really funny just seeing how ill-suited I was to play Final Fantasy because of my it was something I could adapt to and get used to again. So it's kind of funny looking at all three of those MMO worlds too. LOTRO, I love the content, I love the play. Final Fantasy's got good gameplay. I just don't like that all of the progress is gated with group events, so you have to group to progress. That's my little personal foible. And then in ESO, I just love the kind of the freedom of it. It was you really can just go anywhere and do anything, and your adventure will orient around you. And so I really like the aspects of I find all three interesting. So I've been having fun with the new Templar.
You always hear like the phrase open sandbox, and goodness knows LOTRO probably has the biggest open world to explore. But ESO really is an open sandbox. You can like take off in any direction and end up doing just about anything.
I loved that. I loved that. What's happening now, Guare, too, is now going through with the Templar, I'm actually doing things in sequence, in the actual sequence that they intended to drive the story. I didn't meet Lyris Titanborn until after I think I completed something. It was like I met her so late that it's funny to see that you meet her right away.
Oh, yeah.
The storyline is like, I didn't meet her for years,
Right. And that's the way things go on that. Now, one interesting thing on it is because on Monday, when they released High Isle, in many traditional MMOs, you make sure you had a character at level cap so that you could do the content. Well, this one, you can create a whole new character and send them off the High Isle at once. In fact,
you can make a Breton and try to fit in.
But I think that was so magical for me about the initial experience I had with Cord was the first time I log in, the first fight I have, I'm fighting with a bunch of people against a black dragon. It was like, okay, I would chalk this up to I wasn't expecting this to be my first combat with this character, but then I have this Looney Tunes.
Honestly, I don't think we planned on it either.
No, I don't
just
know. We
happened
didn't.
to be there.
But I guess that's what's kind of fun about ESO. You hit another great point, Guare, which is you can just be traveling around the landscape and suddenly a dolmen appears. And then out of the, you're just doing something else, and then out of the blue, you're working with a couple other people to kill this dolmen. And I love that kind of aspect of it very much. So have you guys gotten into the trials at all? Because I'm assuming really that's the next kind of
you
big
need
step
a
for
pretty big group for that. So that's almost like a guild type of thing.
I think trials are what most of the MMOs call raids.
Okay, I got you.
That's the impression I get. And it could be that they decide to avoid the word raid because it has other meanings also.
Okay. Yeah, I found Cord can't solo a Hero Storm. He's actually he dies pretty quickly.
Well, Hero Storms I don't think have any scaling to them.
Yeah.
No, I don't think they do. You're absolutely right because
right.
It's embarrassing.
I think that is performing as intended.
Yes.
Yeah. Right. So with my new Templar, I have been seeing because Cord has Guare and I think it was Guare and Sans really that oriented me on the crafting stuff, and I really appreciate that because Cord, even though if he's not crafting, he's been collecting materials this entire time. So my Templar is almost level 20. I was like, oh, maybe I can make him some gear. And then I realized I had never made any food. I never pursued provisioning at all. But I had 30 skill points, and I had a backpack filled. I don't know how it stayed fresh, but I had a backpack filled with meat and stuff. So I crafted like nobody's business today. Cooking, I mean, he was in the kitchen 24/7. So basically today, Cord became Julia Childs, but he's still an exploding electric orc as well. So he is exploding Julia Childs. I would say he's exploding Julia Childs or perfectly normal Gordon Ramsay. That would be so that but just cooking up all of that. So basically I went from a provisioning of 17 to a provisioning of about 37 with everything I had in my bag. So I wish, as usual, I wish I had just started doing it from the beginning because I'd already be level 50 in it and be able to make everything. But making all that food was hysterical today. So
I will send you a link that kind of gives you tips on like how to progress it fairly quickly. Let's see what you can do with that.
I'm willing to go out and hunt, you know, pigs to extinction, you know, to make to make my food. But yeah, that would be great, Gary. I would really appreciate that because, of course, the food that you've made for me, I use all the time, and it absolutely is. It's incredible to see how you perform with that food.
By the way, if you need a food order, remember always.
I might be getting close. And then basically, other than that, I've been playing RimWorld on downtime. I reloaded Mad Max. I've been playing that for a little bit as well. So pretty eclectic and active gaming week. Gwen, how about you?
Well, over in LOTRO, Gorindus has spent some time doing some repeatables in Far Anorian because I wanted to barter for the Hammerhand tapestry for my geode house. Since I have a brawler now who's at end game, I thought, okay, that would be appropriate to have some brawler type things. And then did some more decorating, including going to the Undershire and getting the tankard picture and some other odds and ends. And yeah, I'm getting more and more excited to like have my geode house on the tour next year for Knights of the White Lady. Does a Street of Dreams tour with all of our houses, and yeah, that's a lot of fun, and I'm looking forward to doing that. Sedessa, the boosted brawler, has done much more to catch up on her Virtue XP, including really digging in on Moria. Not just digging in, but flinging in. Got the Blind Leaper title, amongst other things, and Twist Tongued, and a lot of other ones. And I'm kind of surprised and delighted at how many on-level characters I saw going through Moria. It's like when I was going through with Guerra, it would be like an event if I saw somebody sometimes, and it's just really great to see how the game is more active than it used to be. Lara, she who had such trouble getting back to the 21st Hall, ran after Berglera in Moria on Girls of Middle-earth, and that was fun. She got to lead and decide which direction to turn in. It was a lot of fun. We need to work on the Blind Leaper for that group too, Sans. I think we should get those
For
girls
sure.
title. Over in ESO, Sadessa, first of her name, because my brawler is kind of a analog over in Lotro. She had fun running a dungeon with the gang. Not much else. Not even really crafting. Got to get back into the groove of that. I have some that are so close to finishing the stable, but yeah, I just kind of got fixated on doing deeds on the brawler. So, Sans, what did you get up to this week?
Well, I navigated Moria for girls, doing some penance for leaving us stranded in the flaming deeps 2 weeks before, after jumping down a well. And I had fun introducing you to my favorite way of fighting all the stable masters in a zone. So, that was fun. And we jumped off a few things, including the bridge. And I think we need a new title for that. But it was cool. And I got less lost than I thought I might, even though there were some times that I was completely, totally lost. And yeah, I ran some dungeons in ESO for antiquity leads, and had to do a lot of inventory management, so I definitely need to work on that. And I fought a great dragon in Final Fantasy XIV and enjoyed some ocean fishing, so it was a pretty good week. How was your week, Panleaf?
Right, in my week, I decided that since I done quite a bit of stuff with my high-end warden, my high-end brawler, I decided that for my finally plays the Brawler series to go back to the Rohan one that I had that was at low level. The one that I had on a different server, and the one that on Crick Hollow, the one that I valored up is of course going to continue to be playing with the high levels there. But I decided to go back to my lower level one and continue on since now we have bridles and all. And of course, as I expected, mounted combat is still, I don't know. I'm not impressed with mounted combat, especially on classes that are melee classes in there. So I'm fighting everything on foot anyway. We'll have to see how much I avoid mounted combat and all that stuff in there. I did, I think, one or two things on horseback, but most of it, yeah, I'm staying on foot whenever possible. But I did get and do the stuff that's associated with Harwick, and now I'm in Floodwind and doing the quests over there. Now in DDO, my Tabaxi finished up with Saltmarsh, and I'm heading over into the Feywild, and I've done the first couple of quests over there. My goal there is to get to level 7 by the time we have the release of the Dread Isle expansion, which is scheduled to come out in about 2 weeks or something like that. I think it's coming out on the 21st, around there. So I want to be able to have my character all nice and ready for that, because that area content, it starts at level 7. I want to be nice and ready with that. Then over in ESO, I heard from it's either Sans or Guarendas were telling me about the Rothgar recipes.
I believe that was me.
Yeah, right. Okay, very well. Guerra was telling me about these recipes in there. I thought, all right, let's see if I could go in get those recipes. So I headed over into Rothgar, got all ready, get ready. All right, this is what I'm going to be doing today. I ain't going to be getting those recipes. I head over, I find where it's located at. I go to the Way Shrine in there. I head up a little bit, and then suddenly, at this point, when I'm thinking about finding out what these orc delicacies are, that's when the quest arrow appears on Bastion's head. Oh! Someday he's going to give me a quest. I guess someday has arrived. So I decided to postpone the Orc Gourmet quest line and followed Bastion around and learned that there were some unanswered questions relating to his background. I don't know if any of you have ever done Bastion quests.
Yes.
Yes. All right. So I did. I guess it's what the second one, since the first one is when you first meet him. So I did the second quest with Bastion in there and did that. How long is it before the third one? Is it about the same amount of time between the first and second?
I'd have to look up it. They're gated by levels of rapport.
Right. Yeah, that's what I figured. But you have no way.
He's a little bit more willing to be friendly. How should I put it? He's quicker to level up than Miri was. So it shouldn't be take too terribly long.
That's because it's with Miri, it's hard to control the temptation to grab bugs. Well, actually, it is probably going to be a little while, because in a couple of days, I'm going to be probably running into a certain knight, shall we say. Oh, what's her name? I forgot what her name is, but with a certain knight in High
I think Isabel is the character's name.
Yeah,
Sans Laura Bailey voices her. Sorry, I know that Sans watches. Sans listens / watches the crit roll like I do. So.
Okay. Yes. All right. Yes. So yes. So Dame Isabel's in is. I'm planning on running into her at some point and then using her as a companion for a while. What I'm actually doing is I'm now coming up with how I'm going to categorize each of them. I'm setting up Bastion to be a bit of a hybrid companion. Isabel is going to be tank because knight would be that. I know it's a bit typecast in there, but she's going to be very well equipped when I go because I have sitting in my vault a legendary shield and an epic sword, I believe, which would make an excellent pair of weapons for her as soon as
Yes.
that happens on there. So I have a couple of nice pieces sitting in the vault, getting all ready for that. I don't know when I'll have time to go after the Khajiit or something like this, but obviously there is that one also. But I think my character is going to get a lot better with Isabel than with that Khajiit, which is probably parallels the fact that I get along a lot better with Bastion than I do with Mir. So I was doing in there. I did that one. Then I went back and got the recipes, and then took some advice between you and Sans. I got the ideas. Oh, I can now clear out a lot of this excess food that I have now that I have these in there, and now my bags are a lot lighter than they were before. And just thinking, wait a minute, I'm taking inventory advice from Sans. Is that a good idea?
Ouch.
Hey now, it worked.
It worked, yes. Yes, because so now my inventory is a lot lighter on there because right now I guess I'm starting each session with about 35 inventory spots used, and so the rest of it is free. So that should put me on a nice footing in there, and I should be ready for next week when High Isle comes out. And that concludes my week in gaming. So let's go and see what our news is beyond LOTRO, where Darren Loremaster has put out his wallpaper collection. He calls it his gallery. That's right, his wallpaper gallery for Minas Honor, Once Tower of the Sun, and I sort of noticed that he has all these wallpapers on there that he's made on all there, and just now realized that he's been spelling it as Minas Arnor instead of Minas Honor.
Blasphemy.
So, what is this a tower that's up in Northwest area door? Yeah, so instead of the Tower of the so apparently the Tower of the Sun was sitting somewhere in a Numinous or something, I guess.
Potentially.
Yes, apparently. And anyway, he has the 4-piece versions of the artwork with the poem in there, and perhaps I should have noted earlier when he has had all these other lead-ups that he's been having for the last couple of months that I should have noticed that he's been spelling Minas Honor with an extra R. We currently have 14 supporters on Patreon. If you'd like to join this illustrious rate of players and help support LOTRO players, you can go to the Nation's page. You can support the Players Alliance on Patreon. Your money will be used for our podcast hosting, website hosting, and to pay for our live shows. If you would like to send us an email, you can send it to podcast@lotrplayers.com. You can also follow us at Twitter. The Players Alliance at Players Alliance, Lotra Players at Lotra Players, Arendis at Terendis, Primely Pit Polyth Needle, Sens Winda at Sens Winda, Teriadwin at Teriadwin, Guarendis at Guarendis, Calvalian at Calvadian, and Krister at Entropy Engine 1. The Players Alliance has 2 shows on Saturdays at 8:30 p.m. US Eastern Time. We have Lotra Players News, and we record DDO Players News when Drac is available. you can join for our shows at luchaplayers.com/live. And that is all for this weekend. This is Polyp Needles reminding you to skirmish responsibly.